Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. That's a quote by Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Hello dear students, I'm Miss Lindley and this is Plutarch. Welcome to class. Today we're going to continue reading from the life of Nicias with a translation by Dryden. I'm going to put some things up on the screen that'll be helpful. Now we will continue with part 6 of the life of Nicias as translated by Dryden. There is no judgment to be made of fortune, nor can any reasoning bring us to a certainty about it. If Nicias had run the risk with Alcibiades whether of the two should undergo the ostracism, he had either prevailed, and his rival being expelled the city, he had remained secure, or, being overcome, he had avoided the utmost disasters and preserved the reputation of a most excellent commander. Meantime, I am not ignorant that Theophrastus says that when Hyperbolus was banished, Phaeax, not Nicias, contested it with Alcibiades, but most authors differ from him. It was Alcibiades, at any rate, whom, when the Egestaean and Leontine ambassadors arrived and urged the Athenians to make an expedition against Sicily, Nicias opposed, and by whose persuasions and ambition he found himself overborne, who, even before the people could be assembled, had preoccupied and corrupted their judgment with hopes and with speeches, insomuch that the young men at their sports, and the old men in their workshops, and sitting together on the benches, would be drawing maps of Sicily, and making charts showing the seas, the harbors, and general character of the coast of the island opposite Africa. For they made not Sicily the end of the war, but rather its starting point, and headquarters from whence they might carry it to the Carthaginians, and possess themselves of Africa, and of the seas as far as the Pillars of Hercules. The bulk of the people, therefore, pressing this way, Nicias, who opposed them, found but few supporters, nor those of much influence. For the men of substance, fearing lest they should seem to shun the public charges and ship money, were quiet against their inclination. Nevertheless, he did not tire nor give it up, but even after the Athenians decreed a war and chose him in the first place general, together with Alcibiades and Lamachus, when they were again assembled, he stood up, dissuaded them, and protested against the decision, and laid the blame on Alcibiades, charging him with going about to involve the city in foreign dangers and difficulties, merely with a view to his own private lucre and ambition. Yet it came to nothing. Nicias, because of his experience, was looked upon as the fitter for the employment, and his wariness, with the bravery of Alcibiades and the easy temper of Lamachus, all compounded together, promised such security that he did but confirm the resolution. Demostratus, who of the popular leaders was the one who chiefly pressed the Athenians to the expedition, stood up and said he would stop the mouth of Nicias from urging any more excuses, and moved that the generals should have absolute power, both at home and abroad, to order and to act as they thought best, and this vote the people passed. The priests, however, are said to have very earnestly opposed the enterprise, but Alcibiades had his diviners of another sort, who from some old prophecies announced that, quote, there shall be great fame of the Athenians in Sicily, end quote, and messengers came back to him from Jupiter Ammon with oracles importing that, quote, the Athenians shall take all the Syracusans, end quote. Those, meanwhile, who knew anything that boded ill, concealed it, lest they might seem to forespeak ill luck. For even prodigies that were obvious and plain would not deter them. Not the defacing of the Hermae, all maimed in one night except one, called the Hermes of Anacates, erected by the tribe of Aegeus, placed directly before the house then occupied by Anacates, or what was perpetuated on the altar of the 12 gods, upon which a certain man leaped suddenly up, and then turning round, mutilated himself with a stone. Likewise, at Delphi, there stood a golden image of Minerva, set on a palm tree of brass, erected by the city of Athens from the spoils they won from the Medes. This was pecked at several days together by crows flying upon it, who also plucked off and knocked down the fruit made of gold upon the palm tree. But the Athenians said these were all but inventions of the Delphians, corrupted by the men of Syracuse. A certain oracle bade them bring from Clazomenae the priestess of Minerva there. They sent for the woman and found her named Hesychia. Quietness, this being, it would seem, with the divine powers advised the city at this time to be quiet. Whether therefore the astrologer Meton feared these presages, or that from human reason he doubted its success, for he was appointed to command on it, feigning himself mad, he set his house on fire. Others say he did not counterfeit madness, but set his house on fire in the night, and the next morning came before the assembly in great distress, and besought the people, in consideration of the sad disaster, to release his son from the service, who was about to go captain of a galley for Sicily. The genius also of the philosopher Socrates on this occasion, too, gave him intimation by the usual tokens that the expedition would prove the ruin of the Commonwealth. This he imparted to his friends and familiars, and by them it was mentioned to a number of people. Not a few were troubled because the days on which the fleet set sail happened to be the time when the women celebrated the death of Adonis, there being everywhere then exposed to view images of dead men carried about with mourning and lamentation, and women beating their breasts, so that such as laid any stress on these matters were extremely troubled, and feared lest that all this warlike preparation, so splendid and so glorious, should suddenly, in a little time, be blasted in its very prime of magnificence, and come to nothing. And that's all we have for today. Let's end with our closing words. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. I look forward to our next lesson. Thanks.